Hello and welcome to Easy Piano for Singers. Today I am going to teach you about intervals. I'm going to go over some of the basics. There's a lot involved, but let's begin with what an interval is. An interval is the difference in pitch between two notes. There are whole step intervals and half step intervals. The sequence of whole step and half step intervals are identified by the letters W and H, a capital W and capital H, between the note names. The sequence of intervals create the scale that I am about to show you. Let's look at the C major scale to see how the sequence is to find the interval between two notes. I will show you. Okay, so the C major scale encompasses C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C. So there are 8 white notes involved. You can also use the black notes along with the white notes, but we're going to do this step by step in an easy process. To find the interval between two notes, you just find the pitch of the lowest note and you start counting until you reach the top note or the interval that you're trying to find. For instance, if I want to find a third interval, I would go from C to E because those are 3 notes, 1, 2, 3. So that's a third interval. And I'm always going to start with the lowest note. The lowest note here is C. If I wanted to begin with, let's say, the D note, and I want a second interval, I would start with the lowest note, that's D, and work my way up to E. So that's a second interval. Now, we have to understand what whole steps and half steps are. So let me go over that. I did that in another lesson. So from C to D, that is a whole step. From D to E, that is a whole step. From E to F is a half step. And one way I can hint you on this is to look and see if there's a black note in between. If there is no black note in between, then you know it is a half step. From C to D is a whole step, and you see there is a black note in between. D to E as well has a black note. So that's just one way that you can pick out right away to help you determine if it is a whole step or a half step. From F to G, that is a whole step. G to A, whole step. A to B, that's a whole step. Now, notice from B to C, what is the clue here that can tell you whether a half step or a whole step? If you answered there is no black key in between, then you're correct. From B to C is a half step because there is no black key in between. Okay. There are other ways I can explain it, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So, you notice from C to the next C. It's called an octave because there are 8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that continues throughout the piano, from all the way from the left side of the piano to the right side of the piano. Now, this is a virtual piano that I'm using today. So it's small. My piano has 88 keys. It's a regular piano. What do we have from G to A? That's a whole step. Now, for instance, the interval C to G, how many steps do you think that is? What is that interval? Is it a first, second, third? And by the way, there are names for these. Are perfect, major, minor, augmented, and diminished. So those are the names. We have perfect intervals, we have major intervals, we have augmented intervals, we have minor intervals, and we have diminished intervals. Okay, so let's just look at this. From C to G, what type of an interval is that? If you answered it's a fifth interval, you are correct. Why? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We have 5 notes. So that's a fifth interval. From C to E is what type of an interval? If you answered a third, you're correct. It's 1, 2, and 3. From C to F, what type of an interval is it? If you answered a fourth, you're correct. 1, 2, 3, and 4. From C to the next C on the piano, what type of interval is that? If you answered an eighth, an octave, an eighth, you're correct because there are 8 notes from C to C. Let's count that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Now, things can get a little complicated if I use black notes. So let me just give you a little bit of information in this lesson. From C to the black note, that's a half step. From the black note down to the white key is another half step. Now, if I count from C, and we call this one whenever, and I have a lesson on that, whenever you work from the left of the piano to the right of the piano, we call these black notes sharps. If you're working from the right side of the piano to the left side of the piano, we call that flats. So we have C to C sharp. Now, from that black note back down, those are 2 half steps. From C to C sharp is a half step. From that C sharp down to the D, now we have another half step. Okay, so half and half is 1. So this is 1 whole step. And if you go from, let's say, from this D here, this is a D sharp, you're going this, but if you're working with this sharp and you come down, that's a half step. Then from E to F with no black in between is another half step. So a half and a half is a whole. So we have from this black note down to the E to the F. That's a whole step. Okay, I wanted to show you something else because basically I'm working on the keys of the piano, but there is also, here we go. Okay, so if you looked at my previous lessons, and by the way, I touch on it, but I do have a course that goes into detail with some of the music, theory, chords, intervals. I go over minor, major, diminished, how to sit properly on the piano, how to play with your left and your right hand, how to use the pedal when you're playing. Just a lot of information. I have a course, and if you're interested, you can search for easy, and E and a Z, easypianoforsingers.com. That's at a very, very reasonable, reduced price right now. So take advantage of it. All right, so this is a treble clef. That means we are playing with the right hand right now, not the left. And the treble clef includes, it has 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines and 4 spaces. Count from the bottom up, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that is where we write our musical notes so that musicians who could read music can use this. There are some people that play by ear. If you have a good ear, well, bless your heart. There are some people who cannot play by ear. They have to have this in front of them. And this is simple. The regular song sheets are a lot more complicated. I have right and left hand, and you got to learn which one to play first and then playing them together. It's a lot involved. So this is a C. Take my word for it. I'm not teaching you right now how to read notes, but from C to D, that's a second. This here is another C. So there are how many steps? 3 steps. Why? Because from C to D, and D is where this note is. There's no line here, but that's okay. Those are notes that go under the staff. There's a name for that. Ledger lines. Ledger lines, imaginary lines. So we have 1, that's C. D is imagined to be here. And then we have E. Okay? So that's 1, 2, and 3. And then here we have 1 as the imagined D. We have an imagined E, so we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's 4 steps, and so on and so on. Now this 8th note is interesting. There's a C here, and guess what this is? It doesn't have a line on it. Only the C notes at the bottom of the staff have a line, but this one doesn't. But it's a C. So names of these, I have a lesson on that. Names of the lines and spaces. So take a look if you're interested. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Please do not forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future lessons, and give it a like. Give it a like, please. It takes time and dedication to do these videos. I have some people who, really appreciate, and they give me comments, and they email me, and then some people just oblivious. They don't even want to say hello or give it a like, or they have no questions. They're completely silent. And those are the people that will not learn, because if you don't ask questions, you will not learn. So there is no wrong question. All right. As far as I'm concerned, I'm here to teach you. And like I said, if you are interested and you're serious about taking your piano lessons to the next level, well then go to Easy Piano. I'll put the description on the top screen here. EasyPianoForSingers.com. Okay, so see you in the next lesson, and study hard.